Hello loves, welcome to my channel. My name is Charlotte and today this video is going to be all about Imbolc. So you might have heard of winter solstice, of the spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, but there are also festivals in between these solar events. Over the last few years, being from Britain, I've been trying to do a lot more research on our ancient history here and the spiritual practices that we have here in the UK. There are really amazing spiritual practices all over the world, but something that I think has been quite forgotten about that is being restored are the ancient practices here in the UK. So really my intention with this video is I've done some research, I'm still learning too, is to share my research with you and maybe it sparks something within you. Maybe you would like to also start to celebrate this festival just like our ancestors would have. And I know that every year I'm trying to learn more and more about our ancient history here in the UK and how our ancestors would have been celebrating, rather than looking at other cultures, which is beautiful and really healing too, but there is so much medicine in connecting to our roots and really remembering how the people of the land lived and celebrated and lived in accordance to the seasons. So that's my intention. I've got some really interesting information and I hope that you enjoy. Okay, so Imbolc is said to be the time where winter starts to loosen its grip on nature. And you can start to see the snowdrops around. It's not yet spring, but it's a promise of spring. It's a promise that spring is coming. And it's not something dramatic, it's actually something very subtle. That, for example, I've been going out in the mornings recently, and although it's raining most days here in the UK, the other day it wasn't raining and it was so gorgeous and the sun was beating down on my face, and I was just saying to my partner, like, spring's coming, I can feel it. You can sense something shifting in the air, and that's really what Imbolc is all about. It's about this celebration of this very subtle shift in seasons. So we can think of Imbolc as an ancient cross-quarter festival, and it's normally celebrated around the 1st and 2nd of February. It's a threshold moment between winter and spring, and it really symbolises this stirring of life beneath the surface. It's like almost as if like everything in nature that is sleeping is very slowly starting to wake up. This festival in particular is actually all about anticipation. It's all about survival, purification, and the hope of what's to come next. In this video, we're going to be exploring together where Imbolc comes from, what it means historically, the goddess associations with Imbolc, the symbols of Imbolc, and how we might begin to understand Imbolc today. Okay, so what is Imbolc? Imbolc is known as a cross-quarter festival, which lies in between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So it's traditionally celebrated on the 1st of February, but some astrologers may see it more as a time between the 3rd and the 6th of February. It really depends on the year. We know that Imbolc was celebrated as a Celtic festival, but what's really interesting is that it was also celebrated by the early Neolithic peoples too, and it also mattered to the early agricultural generations as well. And we can find this evidence on the hill of Tara in Ireland. And we can look at this hill and we can see that there is a mound called the Mound of Hostages, which aligns with the sunrise at Imbolc and at Samhain. So originally, we see a lot of these structures or hills or stones that are aligning with the sunrises on these solar events, such as the winter solstice and the summer solstice, as well as both the equinoxes. But to find one that is also for Imbolc and Samhain is super special. It really demonstrates to us like how our ancient civilizations also celebrated these festivals. And it actually points to the fact that this festival was ritualistically important over 5,000 years ago. So let's talk about the meaning of Imbolc. Like, what does that word actually mean? So Imbolc or Imbolg actually comes from the Old Irish in the belly. And it's actually referring to pregnant sheep. It's referring to the return of the milk. So back in the day, milk was unavailable through the most of winter, and it was pretty life-saving in pre-industrial societies. And keeping this in mind, milk was really a symbol of renewal, of nourishment, and also of survival. So over the years, there has been some debate over whether the milk was referring to milking or whether it was referred to as cleansing and washing. Modern scholars can acknowledge that there is just multiple meanings that's been built over the centuries of Imbolc being a celebrated festival. Imbolc really reflects what actually mattered most, which was all about livestock, food, warmth and survival, especially during this time. I can't even really imagine living, you know, thousands of years ago, thinking there's no electricity, there's no, you know, we don't have any heating, there's just fire, candlelight, you know, and the clothes that we have and the animals that we have. So it's definitely a time that would have been more about survival and, yeah, hope. So let's also talk about the goddess that is associated with Imbolc, which she's a very famous one in Ireland, but also across Britain. And I'm sure actually worldwide now, everybody has access to knowledge about the goddesses. And that is the goddess Brigid. She has many names, Brigid actually, but we have Brigid, Brigid, which is a kind of more new name, and Bridie or Brie. There are many names for the beloved goddess Brigid. And we can think of Brigid as a pan-Celtic goddess who really is associated with fire, with healing, also with water, poetry, smith's craft, and the hearth. Brigid is understood as a triple goddess, the triple deity, otherwise known as a maiden, the mother, and the crone, a very, very famous reference in the Celtic pagan belief system. So at Imbolc, Brigid appears as her maiden aspect, and she replaces Cailleach, I think I'm saying that right, please correct me if no, which is the winter hag. And Brigid brings the rain, the thawing, fertility, and she brings inspiration. If you're in Britain, please go and visit Glastonbury Goddess Temple. There are symbols of Brigid everywhere. The fire symbolism that is associated with Brigid is the hearth fire, the fire of inspiration, and the forge fire. So it's important to know that there is also a Saint Brigid, and this is when a lot of the pagan rituals in ancient Britain were absorbed by Christianity and the church. So Brigid became the Saint Brigid of Kildare. And then her eternal flame began to be tended by nuns. And the Gerald of Wales, he described her flame to be inextinguishable, producing no ash and completely forbidden to men. And we can also see Brigid's cross, which is a really gorgeous way of honouring Brigid. Brigid's cross would have been woven through rushes, so it's very easy to fold and to craft something out of that. And once you have your cross, you would hang up the cross in your house, around your home. And this cross in particular would have been all about protection from fire, from anything harmful coming to you. And it is likely that this is a pre-Christian ritual, something that was pre-church. There's an important nuance that some scholars also debated whether the goddess Brigid came before the Saint Brigid, because, you know, no one obviously knows for sure, but in a lot of folk practices, there is a blend between, you know, like faith, myth, rituals, so there's no way to know for sure. But a key point to say is that Imbolc really survived, along with all the associations with Imbolc that we've mentioned so far. Imbolc really survived because it's so rooted in a grounded reality, which is, it's felt, like I said already, like when I went out the other day, I thought, wow, like spring is coming, there's something coming, and you can feel this tangible energy shift in the air. So let's talk about the symbols of Imbolc. So if you're someone that is just discovering Imbolc, which is obviously amazing, and it is really amazing because I think for a lot of us in the UK, we think that we don't have many spiritual practices that are, you know, tangible or easy to access, and it's not true. We actually have these beautiful solar festivals, these beautiful festivals to work with, and there are so many ways to honour them, to work with them, and to connect with them, and also to connect to our roots and our ancestors. So I think it's so important that we can start to remember these and revive these traditions that our ancestors used to do. So the symbols are fire and light. So we have like candles, the hearth. A lot of times on these festivals, we also have bonfires, blessings of purification, and we also have the milk, lambs, and fertility is quite a big symbol of this time. And this is really the symbol of, you know, survival, making it through the winter. You know, it also symbolises hope embodied through the animal kingdom, and it's also symbolising the first births of the year. So there is also the early sign of spring through the snowdrops peeking through the frozen ground, which is so gorgeous. I haven't seen any yet, but I'm going to go on a little lookout. I have seen quite a few of my friends that live in Wales. They've been seeing the snowdrops. I actually saw some daffodils the other day, but I don't know if they were pre-planted because they looked pretty they looked pretty good already. I was like, wow, that looks incredible. But I'm just so excited for all of this to bloom over the next few months. To kind of like conclude this little Imbolc wrap up. So Imbolc is really known as like a liminal season. So we're not quite there yet. We're kind of like in the in-between. We're kind of in limbo being in Imbolc. It's like, oh, we're not quite in spring yet. Oh, but we're not in winter anymore. We're kind of like in this middle vibe. It's actually a threshold. It's a time of testing and preparation for when spring actually does come. So it's kind of like a light whisper, you know, like just slowly waking, but we're not quite there yet. It's like, get ready, put your shoes on, or like start trying to decide your outfit, but don't get dressed yet, okay? Like we're not there yet. But emotionally, some of us might feel that, you know, we have some more optimism about life, which is really gorgeous. But it's important to say that the conditions are still harsh. You know, I'm wearing a big coat when I go outside. I'm still wearing my scarf. I'm still, you know, wanting to make soups and drink hot drinks. Like, I'm not quite doing yoga outside yet, you know? But people might also feel, or you may also be feeling impatient, which is quite normal. Restless is also a common kind of feeling right now, and also hopeful, but also a little bit fragile. You know, we're still thawing off the winter freeze if you're in Europe. And this, interestingly, can also link to things like New Year's resolutions that didn't quite work out yet, and also a pressure to start strong. Now, I actually made another video about this, about like starting slowly at the beginning of the year, because there's no point in pushing and rushing and, you know, doing all these things yet. All we have to do is like look outside, and nature really is our guide. So we don't really have to be doing loads of things. Like I said, it's a little bit like just start to prepare for when spring comes, because that's going to be a lot of our support if we are living cyclically through the seasons like we are in the UK. Ultimately, Imbolc is teaching us patience, as is winter, but Imbolc is teaching us, look, we can see outside, it's not quite there yet. So just be patient, just breathe. Patience. So here are some rituals and practices that you can do around Imbolc to connect with this time of year. The traditional practices are going to be lighting candles. If you have an altar, maybe light a white candle, which is really beautiful to honour Brigid, but also to honour Imbolc. Blessing the homes and the livestock. If you've got some livestock near you, go and give them a blessing. Cleaning the hearth and the tools of the home. Also making a Brigid's cross. And also visiting the sacred wells. So if you can literally just Google like, where's the nearest sacred well to me? And here are some contemporary adaptations to these kind of like more traditional rituals that we can kind of quite easily weave into our life over the next couple of days. So this is going to be spring cleaning, so physically and emotionally. Start to journal your intentions, tending to your creativity, writing poetry or tending to a craft that you're doing, spending a bit of time outside and noticing the subtle changes, and also honouring curiosity rather than the outcomes. I think the rituals around this time of year, it's not about output, it's not about doing loads more, it's actually just about like creating a really beautiful space, you know, for intuition, for beauty, to creativity, to really just flow through you. You're really just like creating the space, you're tending to the space, tending to the hearth. So if we look at the wheel of the year, which is a really gorgeous thing to follow if you are done with the Gregorian calendar, then we can look at Imbolc as the sunrise section on the wheel of the year. We can think of Samhain as a sunset, Yule as kind of nighttime, and then we have Astara, which is like the daybreak. So this really situates Imbolc as a time where instead of turning inwards over winter, we're just starting to turn our awareness outwards. So we're just starting to peek through the curtain and have a look to see what's out there. But we're doing this really slowly and really cautiously. To conclude, Imbolc really is a time where we are softly waking up from our winter slumber. We are not yet doing any loud announcements, but rather we are mindful. We are slow, curious, and just starting to spark our creativity again. If we look outside to nature, we have to really trust that the trees are gonna have their leaves again, that the flowers are gonna come back, and really trust the natural flow of things. So if we if we can refer that to ourselves, it's this trust that if you're not quite there yet, if you're not quite at where you want to be, or if you're not yet seeing the fruits of your labor, can you just trust? Can you just nourish yourself before you have to produce? Can you just sit with yourself and just trust that everything that is unfolding at the perfect pace, the perfect pace for you? And I think that that's really what Imbolc is symbolizing. It's about giving yourself grace. It's about patience and trusting the process, trusting that we will always go into expansion, just like the whole of life. You know, we breathe in, we breathe out, and right now we're just about to take this next, you know, in breath or out breath, we're just about to expand. And I just think that just give yourself grace. It's a really gorgeous way of working with life, like these festivals. I think it's an honor to have these as our ancestral roots. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful to be learning about it every year, and I'm so grateful to be sharing it. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you do celebrate Imbolc and you're interested in connecting with the goddess Brigid. I do actually have a yoga nidra on my channel for any women that want to connect to Brigid and to connect to her beautiful light. I'll link that down below. And yeah, happy Imbolc, my loves.